The bus terminal smelled like old coffee and diesel fuel. Rebecca stood in line, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. Her sneakers had a hole in the left sole, and she could feel the cold floor through her sock. She clutched her purse against her chest like it held everything that mattered. Because it did. 2 crumpled $20 bills, a bus ticket to Riverside, and a letter she'd written last night while her kids were sleeping. The line moved forward. Rebecca glanced at the clock on the wall. 10 minutes until boarding. Her heart hammered in her chest. This job interview was everything. It had to work out. It just had to. She thought about the call she'd gotten 3 days ago. A woman's voice, professional and smooth, telling her about an opportunity. A sales position. Good pay. Benefits. They'd seen her resume online and thought she'd be perfect. Rebecca hadn't asked too many questions. She couldn't afford to. Behind her, someone's phone rang. A baby cried. A teenager complained loudly about the Wi-Fi. Normal sounds of normal people doing normal things. Rebecca wondered if any of them were carrying the weight she was. Probably not. They didn't have that look in their eyes. The one she saw every morning in the bathroom mirror at the shelter. The shelter. God, she hated that place. Not because it was terrible. The people there were kind. But it wasn't home. Her kids, Lily and Ben, tried to be brave about it. 7 and 9 years old. And they'd already learned to keep their voices down, to not ask for things, to make themselves small. That's what broke her heart the most. Children shouldn't have to be small. Next, the ticket agent called. Rebecca stepped forward and showed her ticket. The woman barely looked at her, just scanned the barcode and waved her through. Rebecca wanted to say something, to tell this stranger that this ticket represented hope, that she'd sold her wedding ring last week to afford it, that her ex-husband had left them with nothing but debt and bad memories. But the woman was already calling for the next person in line. Rebecca walked toward the waiting area. Her hands were shaking. They'd been shaking a lot lately. Stress, probably. Or not eating enough. She'd gotten good at skipping meals, telling herself she wasn't hungry so Lily and Ben could have seconds. Kids needed to eat. She could manage. She found a spot near Gate 7 and sat down. Her bag felt heavy. Too heavy for what was in it. Just a change of clothes. Some papers for the interview. Her phone with the cracked screen. And that letter. She pulled it out. The envelope was plain white, bought from the dollar store. On the front, she'd written, "For Lily and Ben, to be opened only if something happens to me." Her throat tightened. What kind of mother writes a letter like that? But she'd read enough stories. Heard enough news. Women disappearing. Taking wrong jobs. Trusting wrong people. She needed her kids to know. If something went bad, if she didn't come back, they needed to understand she'd tried. That she loved them more than anything. The letter had taken her 2 hours to write. She'd cried through most of it. Told them about their grandparents who'd passed away before they were born. About how she'd met their father at a county fair when she was 22. About how sometimes love isn't enough. About how she'd fought to keep them, to feed them, to give them some kind of life. She'd written down the phone number for her friend Teresa, the only person she really trusted. Teresa didn't have much either, but she'd promised to take the kids if anything happened. Rebecca had also written down the case number for the shelter, the name of Lily's teacher who'd been so kind, and Ben's asthma medication instructions. The letter sat in her hands now. Part of her wanted to throw it away. It felt like giving up, like admitting defeat before the battle even started. But another part of her, the practical part that had kept her alive these past 2 years, knew it was necessary. Now boarding bus 47 to Riverside, a voice crackled over the intercom. Rebecca stood up fast. Too fast, her head spun a little. She steadied herself and grabbed her bag. People were already lining up. She joined them, fumbling with her purse, trying to find her ticket again. The zipper stuck. She yanked it. Papers shifted inside. Her phone. Her wallet. The letter, the line moved. She was almost at the door. The bus driver stood there, checking tickets. He looked tired. Everyone looked tired. Rebecca finally got the zipper open and reached for her ticket. Her fingers found it just as someone behind her bumped into her. "Sorry," a man muttered. Rebecca stumbled forward. Her purse tipped. She grabbed for it, caught the strap, but something fell. She heard it hit the floor. Didn't see what it was. The bus driver was waiting. People behind her were waiting. She couldn't hold up the line. "Ticket, please," the driver said. She showed it. He nodded. She climbed the steps, her legs feeling like rubber, found a seat near the back, dropped her bag beside her and closed her eyes. Made it. She'd made it onto the bus. The diesel engine rumbled beneath her. More people boarded. An older woman sat across the aisle. A college kid with headphones took the seat in front. Rebecca pressed her forehead against the window. The glass was cold. She thought about the interview, about what she'd say, how she'd smile and seem confident even though she felt like she was breaking apart inside, how she'd explain the gaps in her work history without mentioning the black eye that had kept her home for a week, or the time she'd been fired for missing too many shifts because Ben was in the hospital. This company, Meridian Solutions, they'd said they understood, that they gave second chances. Rebecca needed a second chance so badly it hurt. The bus doors closed with a hiss. The engine grew louder. They were moving. Rebecca watched the terminal slide past her window. For a moment, she thought about her purse, about checking to make sure everything was still there. But she was too tired, too overwhelmed. Whatever fell probably wasn't important. Across the terminal, near Gate 7, a man in a nice coat walked past the bench where Rebecca had been sitting. He was talking on his phone, not really paying attention. His shoe kicked something. He looked down. A white envelope. He almost kept walking, but something made him stop. Maybe it was the handwriting on the front. Careful letters, slightly shaky. The kind of handwriting that carries weight. He picked it up, turned it over. The flap wasn't sealed. Inside, he could see notebook paper covered in blue ink. He shouldn't read it. He knew that. But the words at the top caught his eye. For Lily and Ben. To be opened only if something happens to me. His heart stopped. He looked around, tried to see who might have dropped it. But the terminal was crowded. Too many people. Too many stories. And somewhere out there, a bus was pulling away from the gate, carrying a woman who didn't know she'd just dropped the most important letter of her life. David stood frozen in the middle of the bus terminal, holding the letter like it might explode. People rushed past him. Announcements echoed overhead, but all he could hear was his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He'd only meant to glance at it, to see if there was a name, an address, some way to return it to whoever dropped it. That's what decent people did, right? But the words on the page had grabbed him by the throat. "My dear Lily and Ben," the letter began. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't come back. I need you to know that I tried. I tried so hard." David's hands trembled. He shouldn't be reading this. This was private. Sacred, even. But he couldn't stop. His eyes moved down the page, taking in each line. The woman who wrote this, Rebecca, she'd poured her heart onto the paper. She wrote about loving her children more than life itself, about how their father had left, taken everything, left them with nothing but bills and broken promises. She wrote about the shelter, about skipping meals so her kids could eat, about applying to 57 jobs in 3 months and hearing nothing back. Then came the part that made David's stomach drop. "I got a call about a job," she'd written, "a company called Meridian Solutions. I looked them up online and something feels off. The reviews are strange. Some say it's great, others say run away. But I can't run away. I need this job, even if it's not perfect, even if it's risky, because the alternative is losing you both." Child Services came to the shelter last week. They said they're monitoring the situation. I have 60 days to find stable housing and income, or they'll place you with foster families. I can't let that happen. I won't. David felt sick. Meridian Solutions. He knew that name. Knew it too well. 6 months ago, his architecture firm had been hired to design an office expansion for them. Everything seemed normal at first. Professional. Standard. Then his assistant had dug deeper into the company while processing paperwork. What she'd found made them walk away from a 6-figure contract. Meridian Solutions ran what looked like a legitimate sales operation on the surface. But underneath, they targeted vulnerable people, got them to sell predatory financial products to desperate homeowners, lied about commission structures, trapped people in contracts they couldn't break. When employees complained or tried to quit, the company threatened them with lawsuits for breach of contract and stolen training resources. It was legal enough to stay in business, barely. But it was wrong. David had refused to work with them, had even reported them to the Better Business Bureau. Nothing had come of it, and now this woman, this mother, was walking straight into their trap. He looked up, scanned the terminal. Which bus had she taken? He tried to remember if he'd seen anyone drop something, but he'd been on his phone, distracted, talking to his project manager about tile selections and deadline extensions. Stupid, meaningless things. He looked at the letter again. Near the bottom, Rebecca had written practical information. The name of the shelter, St. Catherine's on Maple Street, her caseworker's name, her friend Teresa's phone number, instructions for her son's asthma inhaler, the name of her daughter's favorite stuffed animal, details that showed how much she'd thought about this, how real the fear was that she might not come back. She'd also written the interview details. Meridian Solutions, Riverside office. Today at 2 o'clock. David checked his watch. 11:15. He looked at the departure board. The next bus to Riverside left in 20 minutes. It was an express route. Would get there by 1:30, half an hour before her interview. His own bus, the one taking him to a consultation meeting with a client in Berkshire, left in 10 minutes. The client was expecting him. They were unveiling the final designs for a community center. Important work. Work he'd spent months on. He stood there torn. This wasn't his problem. He didn't know this woman. Maybe she'd be fine. Maybe Meridian had changed their practices. Maybe he was overreacting, but he knew better. He'd seen the employee complaints. Read the legal threats. Talk to a woman who'd worked there for 3 months and left in tears. Her savings gone. Her reputation damaged because they'd made her lie to elderly clients about refinancing terms. David thought about his own mother. She'd raised him alone after his father died in a construction accident. He'd been 6 years old. His mom had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. Cleaned offices at night, waitressed on weekends, sewed alterations from home during the day. She'd done whatever it took. One winter, when things got really bad, a stranger had helped them. Mr. Patterson, the owner of a local restaurant where his mom waitressed. He'd found out they were about to be evicted. Without asking, without making a big deal of it, he'd given his mom a raise and hired her to manage the weekend shift. Said he needed someone reliable. Later, David learned that Mr. Patterson had actually taken a pay cut himself to afford it. That one act of kindness had changed everything. His mom had been able to keep their apartment.
David had stayed in the same school.
They'd had stability. Eventually, his mom had saved enough to put him through community college, where he'd discovered his love for architecture. Mr. Patterson had died 5 years ago. David had gone to the funeral, tried to explain to the old man's children how much their father had meant to him, how that one moment of caring had created a ripple effect that changed his entire life. He looked at the letter in his hands, at Rebecca's words, at the names Lily and Ben written in careful script. He pulled out his phone. Called his client. Hey Tom, listen, something's come up. A family emergency. I need to reschedule our meeting. Tom sounded disappointed but understanding. They set a new time for tomorrow. David hung up and rushed to the ticket counter. 1 ticket to Riverside. Next available bus. The agent processed his payment. David grabbed the ticket and ran to gate 12. He made it just as they were about to close the doors. The driver gave him a look but let him on. David found a seat near the front. Settled in. Put the letter carefully in his jacket pocket. His mind was racing. What was his plan exactly? Show up at Meridian and do what? Burst into the interview? He'd look insane. Rebecca would think he was stalking her. She'd probably call the police, but he had to try. Had to at least warn her. Give her the information she needed to make a real choice. Not a desperate one. The bus pulled out of the terminal. David watched the city slide past the window. Tall buildings gave way to suburbs, then to stretches of highway lined with bare trees. Winter was coming. Everything looked gray and cold. He thought about what he'd say to her, how he'd explain reading her letter without sounding like a creep, how he'd convince her he was trying to help, not judge, how he'd make her understand that Meridian Solutions wasn't the answer, no matter how desperate things seemed. And then what? Just walk away? Leave her with the same problems but one less option? No, that wouldn't work either. David pulled out his phone again, opened his email, started typing a message to his office manager, Patricia. She was efficient, practical, and had a good heart. If anyone could help him figure this out, it was her. He needed to come up with a real solution. Something concrete. Something that didn't just take away a bad option but offered a better one. The bus hummed along the highway. David stared at his phone screen, thinking. An hour and 15 minutes until they reached Riverside. An hour and 15 minutes to figure out how to help a complete stranger without destroying her dignity in the process. Outside, the sky was heavy with clouds. It looked like rain. The bus rolled into Riverside at exactly 1:30. David was the first one off. His legs felt stiff from sitting, but he didn't have time to stretch. He had 30 minutes before Rebecca's interview started. The Meridian Solutions office was downtown. He'd looked up the address on his phone during the ride. It was a 15-minute walk, maybe 10 if he hurried, but David wasn't planning to go straight there. He had a different idea, a risky one. He found a coffee shop across the street from the Meridian building. Through the window he could see the office. 3rd floor, modern glass facade, logo on the door. Everything looked legitimate and professional. That was the problem with places like this. They knew how to look good. David ordered a coffee he didn't want and sat by the window. He pulled out his phone and called his office manager. "Patricia, it's me. Did you get my email?" "I did." "David, are you sure about this? Getting involved in a stranger's life like this?" "I'm sure. I need you to do something for me. Call Meridian Solutions. Say you're from the State Labor Department. Ask to speak to whoever handles hiring. Tell them you're following up on some complaints and need to verify their employment practices." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "You want me to lie to them? I want you to make them nervous. Nervous people talk. They make mistakes. I need to know what they're really offering this woman before she walks into that interview." Another pause. Then Patricia sighed. "You're lucky I like you. Give me 10 minutes." David waited. Watched the door of the Meridian office. A few people came and went. Everyone looked normal, busy, professional, like any other office in any other city. His phone rang. "Patricia." "David, you were right. That place is awful." "What did they say?" "At first they played it professional, said all the right things. But when I pushed, mentioned I'd seen some online complaints, the woman I talked to got defensive. Started explaining how their commission structure works. David, it's a pyramid scheme dressed up as a sales job. New hires have to pay for their own training materials, buy their own marketing supplies. They work on commission only, no base pay, and the leads they give them are terrible. People who've already been contacted 10 times by other companies. The success rate is basically 0. David's jaw tightened. "What else?" "They make employees sign a contract. If you quit before 6 months, you owe them for the training $2,000. Most people can't afford to quit, so they stay, keep losing money, get deeper in debt. It's predatory." "Did you get a name?" "The person you talked to?" "Michelle. She's the recruitment coordinator. She's the one who'd be interviewing your Rebecca today." David thanked Patricia and hung up. He looked at his watch. 1:50. 10 minutes. He couldn't let Rebecca walk in there blind. But he also couldn't just grab her on the street and shove a bunch of information at her. She'd think he was crazy, dangerous even. He needed a better approach. Then he saw her, walking up the sidewalk toward the building. She was wearing a dark blazer that looked a size too big. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. She carried herself with determination, but David could see the exhaustion in the way she moved. Like every step took effort. She stopped in front of the building, took a deep breath, straightened her blazer, checked her reflection in the glass door. She was giving herself a pep talk. David could see her lips moving. He had to do something. Now. He left the coffee shop and crossed the street. His heart was pounding. What was he going to say? How did you tell someone their last hope was actually a trap? "Excuse me," he called out. Rebecca turned. Her face was guarded, cautious. She'd probably been approached by too many strangers in bad situations. She knew to be careful. "I'm sorry to bother you," David said, keeping his distance. "But are you here for an interview with Meridian Solutions?" Her eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "My name is David. I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to talk to you before you go in there. It's important. I don't know you. Please leave me alone." She turned back toward the door. "You dropped something at the bus terminal." David pulled the letter from his pocket. "I found it. I know I shouldn't have read it, and I'm sorry. But I did. And when I saw where you were going, I had to follow you." Rebecca's face went white. She stared at the envelope in his hands. Her private words. Her deepest fears. In the hands of a complete stranger. "Give that to me." Her voice shook. David held it out. She snatched it from him, checked inside, then looked up at him with a mixture of horror and fury. "You read my letter? My private letter to my children?" I know I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. But I'm glad I did because I know about this company. I know what they do. And I couldn't let you walk in there without knowing the truth. The truth? Rebecca's voice rose. You don't know anything about my truth. You don't know what it's like to have nothing, to watch your kids go without, to be so desperate you'd take any chance, any job, anything. People on the sidewalk were starting to look. David lowered his voice. You're right. I don't know what that's like. But I know what this company does. They prey on people in exactly your situation. They'll make you pay for training, make you buy supplies, put you on commission only. And when you can't make the numbers they want, they'll threaten you with a lawsuit if you try to quit. Rebecca's hands were shaking. You're lying. I'm not. My firm almost worked with them. We pulled out when we learned what they really do. I can show you documentation, employee complaints, legal filings. This isn't a real job opportunity. It's designed to take what little you have left. Then what am I supposed to do? Rebecca's voice cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes. I have 60 days to find work and housing or I lose my kids. 60 days. This was my only callback, my only chance. And now you're telling me it's fake? David felt the weight of what he'd done. He'd taken away her hope. Even if it was false hope, it was all she had. I don't have anything else, Rebecca said quietly. No family, no degree, no references that matter. I've applied everywhere. Nobody wants someone with gaps in their work history. Nobody wants to take a chance on someone living in a shelter. She wiped her eyes roughly. You know what? Maybe Meridian Solutions is exactly what you say. Maybe it's terrible, but it's something. It's a chance to fight, and right now that's more than I had yesterday. She turned toward the building again. Wait, David said. What if there was another option? Rebecca stopped but didn't turn around. What kind of option? A real job. My firm needs an office coordinator, someone to manage schedules, handle correspondence, organize project files. It's not glamorous. Starting pay is $40,000 a year plus benefits, health insurance, paid time off. Now Rebecca did turn around. Her expression was hard to read. Suspicious, hopeful, angry, all at once. Why would you offer me a job? You don't know me. You don't know what I can do. This is pity. I don't want pity. It's not pity. We actually do need someone. My current coordinator is leaving in 3 weeks to move across the country. I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you an interview. A real one. You'd have to prove you can do the work. But at least it would be a fair shot. Rebecca stared at him for a long moment. The wind picked up, blowing dead leaves across the sidewalk between them. I don't understand why you're doing this, she said finally. David thought about Mr. Patterson, about his mother, about how one moment of caring could change everything. Because someone did it for me once, he said, and I've been waiting for the chance to pass it forward. Rebecca didn't know whether to laugh or scream. This man, this complete stranger who'd read her most private thoughts, was standing in front of her offering a job. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. Let me get this straight, she said slowly. You followed me here. You invaded my privacy, and now you want me to believe you're some kind of good guy offering me exactly what I need? David shifted his weight. I know how it sounds. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, this feels like some kind of setup, like you're running a scam yourself. Or maybe you get some kind of satisfaction from this, playing hero to desperate people. The words came out harsher than she intended, but Rebecca was past caring. She was tired. Tired of being judged. Tired of being poor. Tired of people who had everything looking at her like she was a charity case. That's not what this is, David said quietly. Then what is it? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. A security guard stepped out of the Meridian building. He looked at them suspiciously. 2 people arguing on the sidewalk wasn't a good look. Everything all right here? The guard asked. Rebecca and David both turned. Rebecca realized how this must look. Her with tears on her face. Him standing too close, trying to convince her of something. She should probably go inside. Keep her appointment. Let this strange interaction end, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the look in David's eyes. He seemed genuinely worried. Not about himself. About her. We're fine, Rebecca said to the guard. Just talking. The guard nodded but didn't go back inside. He stood there watching. Making sure. David lowered his voice. Can we go somewhere else? Just to talk, please? Rebecca looked at the Meridian building. At the glass doors and the professional logo. at what might be her last chance. Then she looked at David, at this man who'd upended her whole day. "There's a diner down the block," she said finally. "You're buying." They walked in silence. The diner was old-fashioned, with red vinyl booths and a long counter. A waitress who looked like she'd been working there for 30 years brought the menus without smiling. Rebecca ordered coffee and a sandwich. She was starving, but she tried not to let it show. Didn't want to look more pathetic than she already felt. David ordered coffee and nothing else. When the waitress left, they sat in uncomfortable silence. Rebecca gripped her coffee cup with both hands, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. "Why did you really follow me?" she asked. David took a breath. "My mother raised me alone. My father died when I was little. We struggled, really struggled. One winter, we were about to lose our apartment. My mom was working 3 jobs, but it still wasn't enough. A man who owned the restaurant where she waitressed found out. He gave her a raise and promoted her to manager. Took a pay cut himself to afford it." Rebecca listened, watching his face. "That one decision changed our lives," David continued. "We kept our home. I stayed in school. Eventually, my mom saved enough to help me go to community college. I became an architect, built a business, all because one person decided to care when he didn't have to." "That's a nice story," Rebecca said. "But I'm not your mother, and you're not that restaurant owner." "No, but I've spent years trying to figure out how to pay forward what he did for us. I donate to shelters. I volunteer. But it always felt distant, like I was writing checks to feel better about myself. When I found your letter, when I realized I actually had the power to help someone right now in a real way, I couldn't ignore it." The waitress brought Rebecca's sandwich, turkey and Swiss on wheat. It looked better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. She forced herself to eat slowly, to not shove it in her mouth like the starving person she was. "You said you need an office coordinator," Rebecca said between bites. "What does that even mean? What would I be doing?" David pulled out his phone and showed her a job description. Rebecca read it carefully. Scheduling appointments, managing correspondence, organizing project files, handling client communications, basic bookkeeping. It was real work. Administrative stuff, but important. "What's the catch?" she asked. "No catch. It's a real position. My coordinator, Helen, is moving to Oregon to be near her daughter. She's been with me for 8 years. She's irreplaceable, honestly, but she deserves to be with her family. Why not hire someone local, someone with experience? There must be dozens of qualified people in your city." "There are, and I'll interview them too. I'm not just handing you this job. You'd have to interview properly. Show me you can do the work. Provide references if you have them. I'm offering you a fair chance. That's all." Rebecca set down her sandwich. "I don't have good references. My last boss fired me because I missed too many shifts when my son was in the hospital. The one before that, I had to quit because my ex started showing up at my workplace, causing scenes. Before that, I was doing okay until the company downsized and cut their whole support staff." She met David's eyes. "My work history looks like a disaster, and right now I'm living in a shelter with my 2 kids. I'm one step away from losing them to foster care. So when you say you'll interview me fairly, what does that really mean? Because fair hasn't worked out great for me so far." David was quiet for a moment. "Fair means I look at who you are now and what you can do, not just what's on paper. It means I understand that life happens, that circumstances don't define capability." Pretty words. Rebecca felt her defenses going up again. This was too much, too good. Nothing this good ever happened to people like her. "I know you don't trust me," David said. "I get it. I violated your privacy. I followed you. From your perspective, I'm either crazy or running some kind of con. So convince me you're not." David pulled out his wallet, handed her a business card. She looked at it. David Chen, owner of Chen Architecture and Design. An address in the city, a phone number, an email. It looked legitimate. "Call my office," he said. "Ask for Patricia. She's my office manager. She'll tell you the position is real. She'll tell you Helen is really leaving. Check out my business online. Look up reviews. Projects we've done. Make sure I'm who I say I am." Rebecca tucked the card into her pocket. "Let's say you're legit. Let's say this job is real. I still don't understand why you'd take a chance on me. You read my letter. You know I'm a mess. Why risk it?" "Because everyone deserves a chance," David said simply. "And because I think you're stronger than you realize. Anyone who's been through what you've been through and is still fighting still trying to keep their family together. That's someone worth betting on. Rebecca felt her throat tighten. She didn't cry, wouldn't let herself, not here, not in front of this stranger who seemed to see right through her. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, take your time. I have a bus back to the city in 2 hours. I need to get back to my kids, David nodded. I'll give you my number. Call me when you decide. If you want to interview, we'll set something up. If not, I understand. They sat in silence for a moment. Rebecca finished her sandwich, drank her coffee. David paid the bill like he'd promised. Outside the diner, they stood on the sidewalk again. The wind had picked up. Clouds were rolling in, dark and heavy. Thank you for the lunch, Rebecca said, and for the information about Meridian. Even if I'm still not sure about your offer, at least I know not to walk into that trap. That's something, David said. Rebecca started to walk toward the bus station, then stopped, turned back. That letter, she said. Can I ask you something?
Anything. Did you mean what you said?
About passing forward what someone did for you? Every word. Rebecca nodded slowly. My friend Teresa, the one I mentioned in the letter, she always tells me that good people still exist. That not everyone's out to take advantage. I never believed her. Thought she was naive. And now I don't know what to think. Rebecca pulled her jacket tighter against the cold. But maybe I'll make that call. Maybe I'll see if this is real. Because if it is, if someone actually wants to give me a real chance, I'd be stupid not to take it. You're not stupid, David said. You're careful. There's a difference, Rebecca almost smiled. Almost. I'll call you in a day or two. After I check you out, make sure you're not some weirdo. Fair enough. She walked away then toward the bus station, carrying the letter in her pocket and a business card that might be her future. Behind her, David stood watching until she disappeared around the corner. Neither of them noticed the security guard from Meridian building, still watching from across the street, talking quietly into his phone. Rebecca sat on the bus back to the city, staring at David's business card. Her phone had 3% battery left, but she used it anyway. Looked up Chen Architecture and Design, found their website, photos of buildings they'd designed, a community center, an elementary school, a small medical clinic, real projects, real work. She found reviews, clients praising their professionalism, employees on a job site saying David was fair, paid on time, treated people with respect. One review from a woman named Patricia said he was the best boss she'd ever had. Rebecca's chest felt tight. Maybe this was real. Maybe this strange, impossible day had actually brought her something good. When she got back to the shelter, it was almost dinner time. Lily and Ben ran to her the moment she walked in. They hugged her tight, asking 100 questions. How was the interview? Did she get the job? When could they move out? Rebecca knelt down to their level. The interview didn't happen. But something else did. Something that might be even better. I need a few days to figure it out, okay? Ben's face fell. He was 9 and starting to understand that might be usually meant probably won't be. Hey, Rebecca said, touching his cheek. Have I ever stopped fighting for us? He shook his head. Then trust me. I've got this. That night, after the kids fell asleep in the bunk bed they shared, Rebecca sat in the common area with her friend Teresa, told her the whole story. The letter. The stranger. The job offer. All of it. Teresa listened without interrupting. She was good at that. So what are you going to do? Teresa asked when Rebecca finished. I don't know. Part of me thinks it's too good to be true. That I should forget about it and keep looking for something else. And the other part? Rebecca was quiet. The other part thinks maybe this is what hope looks like. And I'm just too scared to recognize it. The next morning, Rebecca called Patricia, introduced herself, asked about the coordinator position. Patricia was warm and professional, confirmed everything David had said. Helen was leaving. They needed someone. The position was real. Would Rebecca like to come in for an interview? Yes, Rebecca said before she could talk herself out of it. Yes, I would. They scheduled it for 3 days later. That gave Rebecca time to prepare, to borrow a better blazer from Teresa, to print her resume at the library, to practice answers to questions she knew they'd ask. The interview was nothing like she expected. David was there, along with Patricia and another architect named Kevin. They asked about her experience, her skills, her computer knowledge. They gave her sample scenarios. How would you handle a double-booked appointment? What if a client calls angry about a delay? Rebecca answered honestly, drew on her years of waitressing, of managing chaos, of juggling impossible situations. She didn't pretend to be something she wasn't, just showed them who she was. At the end, David walked her out. "You did well," he said. "Did I get the job? We have 2 more candidates to interview. We'll let you know by the end of the week." Rebecca's heart sank. Of course, she'd been foolish to think it would be that easy. "But between you and me," David added quietly, "I think you're exactly what we need." The call came 4 days later, Patricia's voice on the other end. "Professional, clear. We'd like to offer you the position." Rebecca had to sit down. The shelter's common area spun around her. "The starting salary is $40,000. Health insurance starts after 90 days. 2 weeks paid vacation after 6 months. We'd need you to start in 3 weeks. Does that work for you?" "Yes," Rebecca managed to say. "Yes, that works." When she hung up, she cried. Big, ugly, relief-filled tears. Teresa found her like that and didn't ask questions. Just held her while she sobbed. The next 3 weeks were chaos. Good chaos. David connected her with a nonprofit that helped people transitioning out of homelessness. They had a program for security deposits and first month's rent. Rebecca found a small apartment. 2 bedrooms. Nothing fancy, but it was clean and safe and theirs. She met with her caseworker. Showed her the job offer letter, the lease agreement, proof that she was getting back on her feet. The caseworker smiled. "Actually smiled. You did it," she said. "I'll close your file. Your kids stay with you." Rebecca started work on a Monday. Helen, the woman she was replacing, spent 2 weeks training her, showing her the systems, the filing methods, how David liked his coffee, which clients were easy and which ones needed extra patience. "He's a good man," Helen said on her last day. "Takes care of his people." "You're lucky." "I know," Rebecca said, "but it wasn't just luck. It was work." Rebecca threw herself into the job, learned fast, stayed late, organized systems that hadn't been organized in years. She wasn't just doing the job. She was proving she deserved it. One evening, 2 months in, David stopped by her desk as she was finishing up. "You're still here?" "Just wrapping up some invoices." "Rebecca, you don't have to work late every night. You've got kids at home." "I know, but I want to do this right. I want you to know you didn't make a mistake hiring me." David pulled up a chair, sat down across from her. "I need to tell you something. That day at the diner, you asked why I'd take a chance on you. I told you about my mother. About Mr. Patterson, that was all true. But there's something else." Rebecca stopped typing, looked at him. "When I read your letter," David continued, "I saw my mother in your words. The same determination. The same fierce love for your kids. The same refusal to give up even when everything felt impossible. My mother used to say that poverty isn't about being lazy or making bad choices. It's about running a race where some people start at the finish line and others start a mile behind, and then everyone acts shocked when the results are different." He leaned forward. "You've been running that race your whole life. I just gave you better shoes. The rest? That's all you." Rebecca's eyes stung. "Thank you. For the shoes. For the chance. For believing I could do this." "You're welcome. But Rebecca, stop working late every night. You've proven yourself 10 times over. Go home to your kids," she smiled. "Deal." 6 months later, Rebecca sat in her apartment on a Saturday morning. Lily and Ben were watching cartoons. The rent was paid. The fridge was full. Ben's asthma medication was refilled and covered by insurance. Lily had started dance classes at the community center. Rebecca pulled out the letter, the one she'd dropped that day at the bus terminal. She read it again. All those desperate words, all that fear. She thought about burning it, getting rid of that reminder of the worst time in her life. But something stopped her. Instead, she folded it carefully and put it in a box in her closet. Not to forget the pain, but to remember the strength. To remember that she'd survived. That she'd fought. That when one door closed, another opened. And to remember that sometimes, in the most unexpected moments, strangers become heroes. Not by swooping in with grand gestures, but by offering something simpler and more powerful. A chance. Her phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "Coffee today?" "My treat," Rebecca smiled and typed back. "Can't. Taking the kids to the park." "Tomorrow?" "Perfect." She looked around her small apartment, at the second-hand couch and the scratched dining table, at her kids safe and happy in hers. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fancy. But it was home, and that was everything. 3 years later, Rebecca became office manager. 5 years later, she helped David start a mentorship program, connecting his firm with people transitioning out of difficult situations. They hired 3 more people from circumstances similar to Rebecca's, gave them the same chance she'd been given. The letter stayed in its box. A reminder that the worst moment of your life can lead to the best chapter you never saw coming. David kept his copy too, in his desk drawer. A reminder that small acts of kindness create ripples you can't predict. And sometimes, those ripples change everything. On quiet afternoons, when Rebecca filed paperwork or answered phones, she'd think about that day at the bus terminal, about the letter falling, about David finding it, about all the tiny moments that had to align perfectly for her life to change. She'd think about Mr. Patterson, a man she'd never met, whose kindness decades ago had somehow reached forward through time to save her family, and she'd make a promise to herself, to pay it forward, to watch for falling letters, to be the person who picks them up, because everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves someone who believes in them. And sometimes the hero in your story is just a stranger who decided to care.